Well, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to my series of videos about how I teach advanced driving. Now, at an early stage in any advanced driving course or any day of instruction or course of instruction or anything along those lines, you as an instructor will want to carry out an initial assessment drive. That means putting the students, putting the driver, the associate in the driving seat and having a look at what their baseline is. So the baseline, I define that as just what they default to, how they normally drive. There's a couple of things they need to get over with this. They'll be a bit nervous and you need to take that into account. For some people it might be the first time in a long time that they've had anybody look with a critical eye at their driving. So you need to try your best to put them at their ease. And I tend to do that by saying, well, look, you know, I know you're a bit nervous, don't worry about it, I know you can drive. Let's just have a drive round and a chat and let's see what you're doing. So I'm letting you into one of my trade secrets here, but those people amongst you who have been out on one of my coaching days will know that when you pick me up, we go for a drive and I have a chat with you. And I have a chat with you about other things. I might ask you what's motivated you to come on a day's coach, you know, what's motivated you to get in touch or to seek out a bit of instruction. But I'm genuinely interested. What do you do for a living? You know, have you been on holiday? What other things do you do? How long have you had this car for? You know, I will chat to you about other things as we are driving round. And while we're doing that, I've got one half of my brain on the conversation that I'm having with you, and the other half of my brain is focusing on what's happening with the car and what you're doing with the car and where you're putting it and how you're using the controls. And I'm making a little mental note, and I avoid using notes for this. If you do take notes while you're doing this, don't take this as a criticism. I'm just not a big one for taking notes, and especially since I started instructing and examining on bikes a few years ago where you can't take notes. I sort of habitually got into the routine of not writing notes down as I'm going along. If you want to take notes, if that's your style, then fine, no issue. But for me, I sort of almost split my brain in half, and one half is having the conversation with you, the other half is focusing on the driving and seeing what you're doing. That's my way of just putting you at ease, trying to make sure that the nerves that I know that you're feeling as a student, as an associate, as somebody who's putting themselves under scrutiny, I know that you're feeling those nerves. Let's try and forget them. The important thing for me then as well is that the more you relax, the more you feel like it's just a conversation, which is what it is, the much more likely you are to just drive as you normally drive. You will default to your baseline. You'll go back to your muscle memory. Let's have a look down here. Never been down here before. You will default to your own 4-stage of competency, and I then will understand what I need to work on and what are the things I need to focus on, and it will also help me prioritize the order in which I do that stuff. What do I think is the most important thing I need to fix with this individual before we move on to anything else? So in that initial assessment drive, you need to create an environment in the car which is relaxed, not too stressful. You need to pick a route that gives you a variety of different roads. I tend to avoid motorway just because that can take a big chunk of time up. But I do want to see you on some sort of urban roads where there are restrictive speed limits, because I want to see if you respect those speed limits and stick to them, or if you're careless and if your speed picks up and rolls above those speed limits. But I also want to see you on some maybe 50 limits, national speed limit, rural roads, so that I can see what your default is there. What do you default to? What's your baseline? How's your positioning on approach to corners? Are you looking in the right place? A lot of people tend to be excessively conservative, shall we say, with their speed assessment for corners. We over slow, we over brake for corners. So as an instructor, as a coach, what am I looking for in that initial drive? Because for me, that initial drive, if you're coming to me for a day's coaching, it's going to be 20 minutes, maximum 20 minutes. What can I learn in 20 minutes? Well, first of all, you know, the first thing I'm going to suss out is, how are you with the car's controls? Is this person smooth, naturally? Or are they a bit rough and a bit clunky? Because that might be something I want to work on very early on. Before we head off into the Yorkshire Dales or up onto the North Pennines, I might want to just work on smoothness at low speeds. Get this stuff right at low speeds and it'll improve as the speeds pick up. I'm looking at how careful are they at junctions, or how careless are they? Are they having a really careful look? Are they a bit overcautious? Sometimes overcautiousness can really hamper a journey. I'm looking at the positioning. So where are they positioning the car on the road? By looking at where you position the car, I can tell whether you are assessing hazardous situations correctly and creating some space, or if you're just not looking carefully at all, if you're just not looking properly. Are you positioning for a view on the way into the corner, but are you prioritising view over the other reasons that we want to take a position? Now, in terms of the system of car control, generally on that initial assessment drive, somebody might have read the course, you know, the course handbook or roadcraft or something like that. They might have read about the system of car control, but I never expect people to be driving systematically at that point. System really is something that needs to be developed with a bit of instruction. I will make a video very specifically on how I teach system, the system of car control. However, there are certain things I will be looking for. For example, it's very common to see people when they've been driving at a higher speed and they're slowing down to just sequentially change down through the gears. They'll go fifth, they'll be braking, they'll go fifth, fourth, third, second. I'll note that and I'll store it, and that'll be one of the things that we visit early on when we start instructing them down the road. Now, that sequential reduction of gearing as you're braking down, I mean, first of all, it's totally unnecessary and it's not systematic, but you need to understand why people do it. Don't just say to them, oh, we don't do that. Yeah, it's much better braking and changing gear once than it is braking and changing down through all the gears. People don't just need to be told what we expect them to do. They need to understand why it's wrong as well. So the reason that people change down sequentially through the gearbox, they might tell you, so you'll ask them, why do you do that? They've no idea. First of all, they've no idea why they do it. Then they think about it and they'll say, well, that's how I was taught. That's what my instructor taught me to do. I wasn't taught to do that 39 years ago. I was taught to brake and change gear. It's a habit they've developed, and I'll tell you the reason why they do it. I'll tell you the reason why people change sequentially down through the gearbox. And the reason is, whenever they come off the brake, they're going to be in the right gear. Let's go up here to TB. If you're braking, you go fifth, fourth gear, third gear, and then you don't need to brake anymore, your speed's correct, you come off the brakes, you're in the right gear. That's why they do it. It's actually easier because you don't have to think about what gear you're in. Now, obviously, systematically, we want them to do that in a different way. But if you see somebody doing that, make a note of it. But the reason they do it is just to give them comfort that they're in the right gear. And one of the things we're going to teach them is gear selection. Not just how to change gear, but how to choose the correct flexible gear. So look out for that. You'll see that regularly. The slightly more subtle one that you'll see is that they will brake and change gear once while they're braking. And again, when I do a video about how to teach system, I'll show you how to get around that. Now, you'll see all kinds of steering techniques. all kinds. You'll see that, you'll see that, this, yeah, you'll see this, and you know, crossing the hands and all the rest of it. What I want you to try and do is focus a bit less on the technique that they're using, a bit more on how it feels. I'll do another video about, you know, teaching how to use the car's controls properly, because it's more about the outcome than the technique. But you'll see all sorts, and you might have a chat about that at some stage. But if the car is going around the corner all right, leave that stuff for now. That's not a priority. That drops down the list a little bit. You'll see things like they'll signal at every opportunity, every time there's a junction, every time they move out to pass a cyclist, overtake a milk float, whatever, they'll put a signal on. Don't worry about that at this stage. People, a lot of instructors, a lot of observers focus too much on those details. You can address that later on in the course, later on in the process. Once they're getting competent with the things that you want them to do with the vehicle, then you can move on to things like signalling. Yeah, so don't worry about those things that you see at first, but you will see that regularly on that initial assessment drive. The things that I will prioritise from that assessment drive are they smooth, are they looking in the right place, or are they relying on the reactions? If they're just relying on the reactions, then their observations are poor, and we need to start with that. If they're rough with the car's controls or sudden with the brakes, we need to start with that at low speeds. I was taught on my car instructor's course for the police that at the start of any course, your aim as an instructor is to get your students smooth and accurate. Don't start out trying to go fast. You start with smoothness and accuracy, and from there the pace will develop. They will go quicker naturally. If you start trying to teach somebody things at higher speeds, the smoothness and the accuracy will fall away, they'll drop off. This is a heck of a road, isn't it? I've just randomly picked this road thinking I've never been up here before. I've ended up on effectively a third world road, the state it's in. But anyway, what I'm saying, I'm just struggling to bring relevance of what I'm saying to what I'm actually doing with the car, but don't worry about it. Yeah, so we get them smooth and we get them accurate. Smooth with the car's controls, accurate with positioning. Prioritise that and get them looking in the right place. Other things that you'll see on that assessment drive, if they're driving an automatic car, they will always drive right up to the hazard on the brakes, carry the braking right up to and into the hazard. They don't take into account the gear phase of the system of car control. And remember, the gear phase is there for it's got another benefit. It lets the car settle after you finish braking. It prepares the car for the acceleration phase. So make a note of that. That's an issue with when you start teaching system. You need to get the braking right. The secret to teaching system correctly is getting people to use the brakes correctly, especially the middle portion of the brakes. Very, very rarely have I gone out with somebody on an initial assessment drive and thought, oh my God, this is horrendous. Very rarely. Now that's usually because people have sought me out for some instruction. They're already interested. They already like driving. But just occasionally I've had a person where I thought, oh, crikey, this is really poor. And usually, generally, that's because they're so painfully slow. Now, on the grand scheme of things, that's not a massive issue, is it? You know, that you could argue that the slower they go, the safer they are. I would argue that just prioritising speed, a slow speed, over everything else, in terms of, you know, thinking that you're a safe driver, doesn't necessarily make you a safe driver. I'm looking for the other things. I'm looking for the sparkle of enjoyment. I'm looking for the things that suggest that the person I'm sitting next to, the person that's going to be driving the car, enjoys it and likes it. Or are they just a bit overcautious and a bit overscared? You know, that informs my approach. But the other thing the initial assessment drive allows you to do is get to know the person a little bit. You're going to be spending quite a few hours in the car with them. You know, I do want to know a bit about them. You know, I do want to explain a bit about me and what I'm going to be doing and how things work. So in the last video I looked at how we give instructions. I'll tell people that these are how I'm going to give you instructions. You know, if I shout brakes at you, it's not because I'm telling you off, it's because I just want a reaction from you. It's how you get them in a relaxed frame of mind, have a bit of a laugh with them over things. You know, this isn't... You know, a lot of the time people are doing this because they've chosen to and they want to. They want to learn this stuff. So use that initial, use that initial assessment drive to feel people out, to work out what motivates them, and to start to work out what their learning style is, if you remember that from a couple of videos ago. If not, go and have a look back at the video on learning styles. In the next video, I'm going to talk about demonstration drives and how they can be used effectively, especially to help the visual learners and the kinesthetic learners amongst you, but also how demonstration drives can go badly wrong right at the start of an advanced driving course. They can go really badly wrong and put people off. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope you got something out of it. I enjoyed that little road. I'm totally confused how that little road got me back here going in this direction, but anyway, it's worked out nicely for us for the next video. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already to the channel. You get an update every time I upload a new video. Go and have a look at the website, reglocal.com. Loads of information there about advanced and performance driving and riding. Information about my books and how to get a day's driver or rider coaching out on some of these roads if you fancy it. If you fancy a bit of this rain. It's only water, isn't it? But for now, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.